Welcome to This Explainer. Have you ever wondered what actually happens when someone comes face to face with their absolute biggest hero? We always picture these perfect, cinematic, slow-motion moments, but reality? It's usually a lot more chaotic, raw, and honestly just deeply human. Today, we're diving into an absolutely fascinating case study in human psychology. We're breaking down this remarkable encounter documented by creator Celine Dept, who finally met her idol, global football superstar Cristiano Ronaldo. We're going to analyze the anatomy of this exact moment, step by step, to see what actually goes down when immense anticipation collides with reality. Okay, so right off the bat, let's look at the sheer physical and emotional overload Celine experienced the literal second this interaction kicked off. I mean, from the jump, her body essentially hijacks her brain. She's repeatedly apologizing for her reaction, telling him straight up, "I'm shaking, I can't do anything about it." And look, that's not just a figure of speech. That is a full-on, involuntary, physiological response. Her adrenaline spikes so high that her motor skills are compromised, and the tears, they just start flowing.
Seriously, I want you to pause for a second. Put yourself in Celine's shoes. You've waited years, maybe your entire life, for this exact moment. Suddenly, the person you admire most in the entire world is standing right there, looking at you, talking to you. Would you be perfectly composed? Would you have the absolute perfect words ready to go? Or would the sheer weight of it all just completely overwhelm your nervous system? Keeping that in mind is absolutely crucial as we break down the clinical anatomy of this whole encounter.
Act 1. The initial emotional overload.
So when Celine first walks up to Ronaldo, she is instantly overwhelmed. Between the tears, the very first words she manages to get out are, "I'm sorry." She actually feels the need to apologize for her totally real, raw human reaction. But notice the wild contrast here in how these two are operating in the exact same moment. On one side, you have Celine, chaotic, tearful, literally shaking. And on the other side, Ronaldo. The guy's the absolute picture of a practiced, calming presence. He completely neutralizes the tension. He validates her right away, saying, "I've seen for a long time that you follow me." When she apologizes, he just simply says, "Don't cry," and pivots immediately to action. What do you want to do? He becomes this incredible grounding force for her emotional storm.
Moving into Act 2, executing the perfect moment.
Now that Ronaldo's provided that grounding force, we hit the high-pressure phase. Celine knows she only has a few brief minutes, right? And despite her emotional state, she has a very specific mental checklist she has to get through. She needs to complete 3 distinct high-pressure tasks while her hands are literally trembling. First, like Ronaldo gently suggested, she has to wipe her tears. Second, secure that photograph. And third, execute a very specific, coordinated handshake with him. Now, doing any one of these things during a massive adrenaline dump is tough, but pulling off all 3, that requires immense focus. Let's talk about that third item. For those who might not know, a dap is a casual greeting handshake, and it actually takes some coordination and timing between two people. Now, Celine explicitly tells Ronaldo she's done this handshake with a lot of players before. She's got the reps. But as she points out, she hasn't done it with the literal GOAT, the greatest of all time, yet. That specific context? Yeah, that adds a massive layer of pressure to what's normally just a simple greeting. So, because her hands are shaking so much, that first attempt at the handshake is a bit of a fumble. Celine admits she's shaking, and they both agree they gotta do a good one. And this is where Ronaldo's interpersonal grace just really shines. Instead of letting it be awkward, he playfully takes the blame, saying, "It's my fault," and then totally yields the floor to her. He says, "You tell me, you are the expert." He uses humor and humility to diffuse her anxiety, letting her take the lead so they can nail it on the second try. So they try again, and it definitely goes better. But later, when Celine is reflecting on the whole thing, she humbly, and pretty playfully, rates her own dap with Ronaldo a mere 7 out of 10. Or actually, as she brilliantly calls it, a 7 with the 7, obviously referencing Ronaldo's iconic jersey number. It just brings this wonderful, humorous self-awareness to the utter chaos of the moment. She knows it wasn't flawless, but hey, it was real.
Which brings us to Act 3, the unexpected manager cameo.
All right, so after she secures her items and they say their goodbyes, the universe apparently wasn't quite done with Celine. Literally seconds after Ronaldo walks away, there is this abrupt, wildly jarring transition. Celine is still a total mess, actively crying, trembling, just trying to process that her lifelong dream actually just happened. And who does she instantly bump into? Roberto Martinez, the manager of the national team. He sees her visibly shaking and asks if she's okay. Talk about a jarring shift in the vibe.
And man, this just brilliantly illustrates the sheer comedy of real-world timing. As Celine says herself looking back at the footage,
That was the worst moment to meet Roberto Martinez. I mean, she's a blubbering, emotional wreck trying to hold a normal conversation with the head coach. Thankfully, Martinez was incredibly gracious about the whole thing. Seeing the state she was in, he politely asks if her tears are ones of happiness. She confirms they absolutely are, they exchange well wishes for the World Cup, and they move on. But seriously, the timing could not have been more hilariously awkward.
Act 4. Analyzing the final artifacts.
So, as the adrenaline finally starts to wear off, Celine finds a quiet spot to review what she actually managed to secure from this absolute whirlwind. What tangible proof does she have that this wasn't just some crazy stress-induced dream? Well, let's catalog the haul. First, she got the photo. Success. But interestingly, when she was getting her items signed, Ronaldo actually asked her, on the front or on the back? Celine had the incredible presence of mind to ask for the front, and thank goodness she did. Because he didn't just scribble his name, he wrote this incredibly personalized message. To my friend Celine, best wishes, right next to his signature. That totally elevated it from just a standard autograph to a deeply personal memento from her ultimate idol.
Resolution, the aftermath of June 12th.
As the reality of the situation fully sets in, all that shaking, the tears, the incredibly awkward timing, it all coalesces into one profound realization. Her absolute #1 dream just came true. The execution didn't have to be perfect, because the outcome? Flawless. She takes a moment to mentally bookmark the date, June 12th. She explicitly states on camera that this is now a day to remember forever. It's so fascinating how our brains want to anchor an unbelievable, overwhelming feeling to a concrete fact, like a specific date on a calendar, just so we never lose it. When you look back at the rapid-fire timeline of this whole thing, it is wild to see how fast it all built up. In what felt like the absolute blink of an eye, she went from a total emotional system overload in minute 1 to fumbling and correcting a handshake in minute 2 to an accidental and awkward cameo with Roberto Martinez in minute 3, and finally, by minute 4, the storm has passed. Like Celine says, now I can watch the training in peace. She survived the emotional roller coaster. It is so incredibly easy for us to sit back on our couches and think we'd be perfectly cool under pressure. But as Celine's beautifully raw experience shows us, true passion is messy, it's overwhelming, and it's totally unscripted. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought. If the universe suddenly dropped your ultimate hero right in front of you today, right this very second, would you pull off a perfect 10 interaction? Or would the emotion totally take over, leaving you with a perfectly imperfect 7 with the 7? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.